In the last decade, or I would say even more than that, if you talk to any advertiser, any agency, and ask them about, tell me what's your campaign data, they will come talk to you about their audience. So in the mindset of any advertiser, data equal to audience. And that's a paradigm which is put in a very big risk from two different factors. One is legislation across the globe. Privacy first implies that you can no longer treat audiences as you used to do in the past. So you need to go through much more layers of privacy guarantees for the consumer, which of course is an obstacle to get easy data from consumer, both on digital and not. That's one aspect. The second aspect is that technology is evolving, and due to the legislation, the bigger technologies like Google and Amazon and Apple and everyone is actually changing the technology in order to reduce the ability for brands to track the audiences. And last but not least, of course, the dismissal of third-party cookies of Google, which is not just Google. It's actually Google is the biggest one, but that comes after many other technologies that have been dropped, third-party cookies. So these 2 points are actually saying something very clearly. Stop user targeting. Don't try to go around with it, because in any way it wouldn't work. And despite the fact there are so many technologies out there, and there's been huge investment in the market around cookies identification, user reconciliation, deduplication, and so on and so forth, the simple fact of still thinking that there will be a technology that will target a single individual user, in my view, is just something that is not achievable. And that is actually our position. We are not looking at the user as a single individual. We are looking at consumers as an overall aggregated number. Mint has taken a different position to this point. We're talking about statistical data. We're talking about input of the campaign and output of the results. We're not talking about user. We're talking about the efficiency of a media channel, with the efficiency of a creative asset, the efficiency of your media mix. It's two different concepts. We no longer talk about the individual. We talk about the mechanics of the campaign, and that's actually how we think it's going to be future-proof for any brand to start thinking it. So what we do bring to the market as definitely a transformational effort is a paradigm shift from dedicated view of a single targeting effort to a more statistical approach. I think that I say that in many different ways. So the approach that any marketer, I believe, should be thinking is start to think differently. Start to think out of the standard, trails in which they've been thinking for the last 20 years, which is a big of a change, we know. But also, I think that will prove that they can do better, even without thinking of a single consumer or a single group of users. So basically, shifting from a user-centric approach to, I would say, a channel-centric approach or a media efficiency approach, then is actually what also Google has started to say. We move from a precision marketing to a prediction marketing. So no longer be precise on the single individual, but be predictive on the efficiency of your investment. That's actually the transformation that is happening, and I'm not saying that, it is Google saying that, which is astonishing, because they've been developing and building the business based on the knowledge of the single consumer. And so I don't think that brands should no longer be affected by not thinking about consumers in terms of targeting. They should continue to think about consumer in terms of designing the product that fit that particular segment and understanding the right message for them. But even statistically, the approach would even work without the idea of a segment or a target to reach. It sounds quite strange that I'm saying that, but it's actually what it proves. I mean, we work on a daily basis on a lot of data points. And of course, the key of everything is to collect all the possible data points of a campaign. And when I say data point, I refer to any single information that a campaign contains, whether it's budget information, performance information, the type of media mix you're applying, the setting you've done on every platform, how you're tracking your domains, etc., etc. So there is a lot of data point, huge. That is actually, if you think of an iceberg and you think that the tip of the iceberg is the audience data, then what I'm talking about is the part that is under the level of the sea. So it's huge. It's a huge amount of data point that we're not collecting, that advertisers are not thinking about, which is actually the major, it's a gold mine. It's actually where advertisers should be focusing on. And that's actually how Mint solves this issue. Mint provides the software that can contain this huge data set. And also the same software of Mint is able to process this data, to create prediction, to create what we call advertising equity. And the concept behind advertising equity is very interesting because effectively every marketer have been dealing with this data for forever, but this data is not collected into a single place, in a single repository. Campaign information is spread across Excel file, presentations, dashboards, email, phone calls, WhatsApp, you name it, right? And the ability to put all this information into a software that can process this data and can, of course, analyze it and through AI and machine learning produce prediction and analysis and next best action is actually what we do. And this is also solve the problem we talk about. Don't focus on the tip of the iceberg. That's no longer something that you would be successful in doing as a marketer. Focus on the piece of the iceberg which is uncovered yet. And try to get out of it the best that you can, which is start collecting all the data and start looking at how AI would evolve the intelligence of your data, producing efficiency for you and your brand. So Mint is an ARM software. It's advertising resource management. So in a nutshell, it helps brands to manage all resources they have for an advertising campaign. When we talk about resources, we talk about people, processes, and technologies. So these three elements are already there. I mean, we didn't invent nothing new. We just put everything together into a single platform, which becomes the single source of truth for every brand when it gets to advertising data. It is a workflow process management tool. In effect, it actually helps the brand and agency to work step by step through a process. And this process is becoming very easy to follow because there is a lot of automation from one step to another. So that actually the automation of things will make people to work less on manual tasks and focus more on the strategic point. So this has an impact on brands using Mint. Conversely, by using a lot of other small little tools of the many different processes that you're actually not making a good economy of scale of the technology you're using. So if you're using a tool for planning and another a tool for trafficking and another hundreds of platforms for media buying and so on and so forth, eventually you end up by having such a complexity, they will spend more time in managing platform than in creating your campaign. So the whole idea is to make sure that the machine does the work for you in terms of process management and process steps, and you can focus more on the value-added activities. And also, that's also the vision of Mint as an ARM player. So we have built the core process, the foundational process, and we know that also around this process there are a multitude of adjacent technologies and processes and sub-processes that in one way or another we need to solve in the future. And that's also how we're approaching both development as well as M&A. So we're looking at both either buying or build components of the process that will continue to increment the ability for brands to do advertising easy, do it fast and with no mistakes and more efficient.